The sky over New Avalon glowed with neon reflections as Evelina Drake's shuttle touched down at the coastal port. She had cut her Berlin trip short. The wedding of her eldest son Mark had been beautiful, but she was tired of speeches, cold weather, and pretending champagne tasted like joy. At 68, Evelina preferred warmth, familiarity, and the view from her penthouse tower where the ocean met the horizon. Dragging her silver case across the quiet lobby, she keyed into her penthouse. The digital locks clicked open. Lights were still on. Odd. Her stepson, Kael, usually spent Friday nights in high-rise lounges, throwing credits at anyone who would call him important. His wife, Serra, she was usually streaming her wellness shows. As Evelina stepped inside, voices drifted from the kitchen. She froze in the hallway. Tomorrow morning, 1 dose in her breakfast tea, Serra's voice whispered, smooth as silk. By next week, the symptoms will show. Forgetfulness, confusion, disorientation. Evelina's blood chilled. Kael's reply followed, shaky but eager. And then we have enough proof to file for full guardianship. The company will be ours, completely ours. A silence stretched. Then Serra added, laughing softly, if she resists, there are always accidents. Elderly people fall down stairs all the time. Evelina's fingers tightened around the strap of her suitcase. 30 years raising Kael, defending him to her late husband Richard, even giving him a place in Drake Innovations, the construction empire she had built brick by brick. This was how he repaid her. She leaned back against the wall, steadying her breath. The actress in her stirred, the old instincts, the ability to control an audience, to bend a stage with silence. They thought she was aging, fragile, predictable. Let them. From that moment, Evelina Drake made a decision. She would give Kael and Serra the performance of their lives. If they wanted a senile matriarch, she would play the role so perfectly that the final act would end with their downfall. She opened the front door loudly, announcing herself with a breezy voice. "Anyone home?" Whispers cut off. Footsteps approached. Serra appeared, flawless smile painted on, holding a glass of nutrient milk that glittered faintly under the neon lights. "Evelina, you're back early. We didn't expect you until Sunday." Evelina rolled her suitcase across the marble floor, watching Kael hover in the doorway, eyes darting like a guilty child. She smiled, calm, measured. "Too cold in Berlin. I thought I'd come back to warmer weather and to see how well you two were taking care of my home." Her tone was light, but her mind was already racing. She wasn't just returning from a trip. She was stepping onto a stage, and the script had just been rewritten. Morning light spilled across the glass walls of Evelina's penthouse. The city hummed below, drones sweeping neon avenues, the ocean barrier glowing faint blue against restless waves. Evelina sat at her dining table, deliberately slow in her movements, letting her hand tremble just enough as she reached for her cup. Kael leaned against the counter, too eager, holding a sleek blender jar of violet Neuro Boost smoothie. "Here, Mom. You need something healthy. It'll help with memory." Evelina accepted it, lifted it to her lips, and let the rim just brush her mouth. A faint metallic bitterness kissed her tongue before she set it down. She smiled hazily. "Oh, Kael, how thoughtful, but I feel so lightheaded. Maybe later." Serra slid in beside her, silk robe trailing like smoke, eyes gleaming with rehearsed sympathy. "That's normal, Evelina. Age, travel, stress. Let us handle things." Inside, Evelina's rage burned, but outwardly she blinked and fumbled with the holo remote, forgetting which button played the news. "Silly me. I never get these things right anymore." Kael and Serra exchanged a glance, triumph disguised as pity. Exactly what Evelina wanted. That afternoon, they brought in Dr. Armand Vera, dressed in a cheap synthetic suit, carrying a med bag that hummed faintly. He smelled of desperation and old disinfectant. "Mrs. Drake," he said, forcing authority into his tone, "I'll run a quick cognitive assessment." Questions followed, Date, city, prime minister's name. Evelina answered, but with pauses, missteps, a faint fog in her voice, enough to appear frail, not gone. When Vera laid out documents on the glass table, Evelina's sharp actress eyes caught the headers immediately. Conservatorship petition. Transfer of executive authority. Power of attorney. She let her hands tremble as she traced a line with her pen, but instead of signing, she smeared the ink across the page. "Oh dear, I can't seem to remember where my name goes." Serra leaned forward quickly. "Don't worry, we'll guide you. That's what family's for." Evelina's lips curved ever so slightly. Family. If they only knew what she was recording. Because inside the pocket of her robe, the small silver holopen recorder glowed red. Every word, every threat, every false diagnosis, captured in perfect clarity. Over the next 2 days, Evelina staged her descent. She called Serra by the neighbor's name. She added salt to her tea and looked genuinely confused. She asked Kael how to unlock her own holopad. They bought every second of it. Meanwhile, Evelina stayed awake at night, reviewing her recordings, cataloging each phrase. Guardianship manageable, accidents happen. She knew she was walking a knife's edge, too convincing, and they might escalate to accidents sooner. Too sharp, and they'd know she was playing them. But Evelina Drake had once filled theaters with silence, made crowds weep with a single glance. And now her stage was this penthouse. "You want a senile matriarch," she whispered to her reflection in the glass wall one night. "Then I'll give you a legend." The third evening arrived like the final cue in a play. Evelina sat at her glass dining table, the city lights of New Avalon glittering beneath her, while Serra placed a steaming cup of soothing night tea in front of her. Kael hovered close, fidgeting with a sleek folder embossed with legal sigils. Dr. Armand Vera, sweat glistening under the neon glow, spread out documents with the precision of a dealer at a crooked casino. "Mrs. Drake, you've shown clear signs of decline. For your safety, I recommend transferring authority. Just a signature here, and everything will be properly handled." Kael's voice cracked with urgency. "It's for the best, Mom. You don't have to struggle anymore. We'll take care of the company, of you, of everything." Evelina let her pen hover, trembling. Her gaze flicked between the three of them. Kael's greedy anticipation, Serra's painted smile, Vera's nervous hunger for payment. She sighed, whispering, "If I sign this, will I finally be safe?" Serra leaned in, whispering like a snake in silk. "Completely safe." Evelina lowered the pen. The holo ink flickered across the page. Kael nearly choked on his excitement, and then the penthouse doors slid open with a hiss. "Don't sign anything." Mark Drake strode in, face pale from exhaustion, eyes sharp. Behind him, 2 federal enforcement officers in cobalt armor fanned out, weapons at the ready. Kael's mouth fell open. Serra clutched the folder to her chest. Vera stumbled back, muttering about misunderstandings. Evelina sat back slowly, letting her trembling vanish like mist. In one smooth motion, she drew the silver holopen from her robe and pressed its side. A holographic projection bloomed above the table. Kael's voice crystal clear. "If she won't sign willingly, then accidents happen. Elderly people fall all the time downstairs out of windows. Nobody questions it." The room froze. Serra's gasp cut through the silence. Even the officers stiffened. Next came Serra's voice, cold and crisp. "The nano-drugs will cloud her memory. In a week she won't know her own name. Guardianship will be ours." Kael lunged for the holopen. An officer slammed him against the wall, cuffs flashing shut. Serra dropped the folder, stammering, "It was just talk, just concern for her health." Dr. Vera tried to slip toward the exit. Mark blocked him, jaw clenched. "You were ready to lock my mother in a facility. Now you'll see the inside of one." Evelina rose, posture regal, voice steady as the ocean beyond the glass. "You wanted a fragile old woman. Instead, you found an actress who still knows all her lines." Her eyes locked on Kael as he was dragged past her. "You should have remembered, Kael, on this stage, I always get the last word." The trial of Kael Drake, Serra and Dr. Armand Vera became the talk of New Avalon. News anchors replayed fragments of the holographic recordings on every channel. Kael plotting accidents, Serra detailing nanodrugs, Vera validating forged guardianship papers. Evelina walked into the glass-walled courtroom in a tailored obsidian suit, not as a victim, but as a woman who had survived betrayal and turned it into evidence. Every step was deliberate, every glance a reminder. She was no one's fragile matriarch. The prosecutor asked her to recount what had happened. Evelina spoke clearly, her voice steady as she looked at the jury. "I raised Kael as if he were my own. For 30 years, I gave him opportunity, education, and love. And in return, he tried to erase me with poison and lies." She turned her gaze on him. Kael sat shackled, eyes fixed on the floor like a schoolboy caught stealing. "He did not see me as family. He saw me as a bank account. He mistook patience for weakness. He forgot I was an actress before I was a businesswoman, and on stage I never forget my lines." The recordings sealed their fate. Jurors flinched as Kael's voice bragged about accidents. Serra wept when her own chilling words echoed through the chamber. Vera attempted to plead incompetence, but his falsified records crushed any sympathy. The verdicts came swift. Kael Drake, 20 years for attempted elder abuse, fraud, and conspiracy. Serra 18 years banned from any medical or corporate work for life. Dr. Vera, 10 years and permanent revocation of his license. Outside the courthouse, reporters swarmed Evelina. "Mrs. Drake, do you feel justice was served?" She smiled faintly, her words cutting like glass. "Justice isn't just about punishment, it's about truth. They thought age made me vulnerable. Instead, it made me wiser. They will spend years behind walls, living the very loss of freedom they tried to inflict on me." Weeks later, Evelina stood on the balcony of her penthouse, overlooking the neon sea barrier Mark beside her. "Mother," he said softly, "are you sure about this, handing me the company outright?" Evelina's hand rested on the railing, eyes calm. "Mark, Kael was right about one thing. I had planned to split it equally, but family isn't defined by blood alone. It's defined by integrity. You stood by me when it mattered. You'll lead Drake Innovations into the next century." Mark hesitated. "I don't know if I'm ready." "You will learn," Evelina said, "because you have what Kael never had, honor." For the first time in months, she laughed, warm and unbroken. "And besides, you've never tried to poison me. That's already a better resume." That night, Evelina poured herself a glass of red wine, sitting alone in her living room, now quiet and free of poisoners. She whispered into the silence. "They tried to take my mind, my freedom, my legacy. Instead, they gave me something priceless, the knowledge that I am stronger than their schemes, sharper than their greed, and far too stubborn to die quietly." The city lights reflected off the glass, a curtain call on the stage of betrayal. Evelina Drake had not just survived, she had triumphed.